Hello friends, it is either Wednesday or Thursday, the 11th month. This is either Wednesday or Thursday. So today's due now, because we're in block days, is identify the ecosystem that has the greater chance of sustainability. Left one or the right one, so this one on this side or this one, and justify your answer. Now if you need to pause to write your answer, please do so now. Okay, well, I looked around the classroom and everybody thinks that the one on the left, and when I asked a friend why, they said if you look at this, there's a lot more food for the grasshopper to eat, and the squirrel, and the mockingbird for the falcon to eat from. See, if here we just had the sunflower to eat from, these little friends, if they lose their source of food, then they die out, and this affects all of our friends in the food chain. So pretty nifty. Okay, so we're going to take a look at our learning targets for today. I will describe the short-term and long-term environmental changes and their impact on organisms. I can define short-term changes, I can define long-term changes, I can give examples of both short-term and long-term changes, and I can compare and contrast them. So right now, you're going to want to open that notebook of yours, that digital notebook, and we're going to be talking about slide number 9. Okay, you're going to drag and drop the correct word as we go over this. So we're going to talk about long-term and short-term changes and how these can affect. So you're going to drag and drop. What does that mean? And so let's see. Long-term and short-term changes in the environment can affect individual organisms and the traits. So you drag this over here of their future offspring. So you see how simple that is? So as you were going along with the daily slides over here, you have the opportunity, my friends, to drag and drop. So let's look at some things. Some background information is that long-term and short-term changes in the environment can affect individual organisms and the traits of their future offsprings. Looks an awful lot like that slide I showed you how to drag and drop. Nature is always changing. Short-term changes, I'm going to start there. Either the animal moves away or dies. Long-term changes means that the animal or the organism can adapt and or they go to extinction. It just takes a longer time to die out. So it's kind of sad, but both are pretty bad, right? Short-term changes affect individual species. Environmental changes that happen quickly and affect organisms immediately. For example, forest fires, floods. Even a volcano eruption is that, because it's just a quick, when that thing pops, it takes out everybody. So again, you want to make sure you're following along in your notebook. You can pause this presentation and drag and drop and open a second window. If you notice up here, I have a couple tabs open. Okay, short term, when organisms move, they can move to another area to survive, like the oil spills or forest fires. So yeah, it does drive them out. Okay, let's look at the next. And when short term is when organisms die, they can't move or they have nowhere to go. Kind of like being trapped here in this picture. Oil spills or forest fires also again can trap some animals in the place that they're already at. So we need to be careful of those as we're talking. Long-term changes affect the entire species. Environmental changes happen slowly over time and affect organisms over generations. For example, climate change or deforestation or urbanization. We see that a lot as we're watching new buildings and houses go up where the land was now wild. We talked about in class, I talked about that coral snake that showed up in my neighborhood. I'd never seen one but in a zoo, but as we're clearing ranch land to build, people are building houses in our neighborhood. Those animals are getting displaced, so that's a long-term change for them. So long-term is when organisms adapt. Adaptation is any physical or behavioral change that helps organisms survive in their environment. Natural selection is the organisms are best suited to a particular environment and are better able to survive and reproduce than organisms that are not. So in this picture here, we talk about Darwin's finches. We've talked about these friends, and that each one of these beaks has to do Here's the original in the center and how they all adapted to the fruit or the food that they had available. The other one here is these really cool moths. So we have two moths. We have on each picture. There's actually a dark and a light on this one. You can see the dark right here, but this light one is right here. And because the tree's light, he's adapted. But over here, here's the dark moth. Can't see him against the dark tree, but that white one is easy pickings, and so he won't survive. So we learned that animals have to adapt if they want to survive. Long term, when they die off, extinction is gone forever. If the species cannot change or adapt to their environment, they die out. So there's Schomburgk's deer. They were huge, beautiful antlers. They were native to Thailand, and they lived in swamps, but they were hunted. So they were never hunted in big enough, they never got big enough in their quantity to cause extinction. Okay. However, when we took down the trees they lived in, then they lost their home and they died because of deforestation or the removal of forests. However, the swamps were drained and those forests were cut down for railways and farming. There was nowhere for them to go. So see what happens? And then the passenger pigeon. Let's take a look at the passenger pigeon here. Okay, so the passenger pigeon also, we took away their habitat, and through urbanization, meaning we overgrew and built things, we destroyed their habitat, so they also had nowhere to go. Okay, so here what you're going to do is you're going to drag and drop each situation to the correct spot. So is a drought, is it long-term or short-term? Well, we learned that droughts are pretty long-term, so we're going to drag that here. This is slide 11 from your digital notebook. So we're there. The hurricanes, those are the short-term change because that's immediate. Okay, so what could be both? Well, let's take a look at it. Maybe a flood could be both. I'm going to say maybe even a hurricane could be both. Okay, so you got to be careful. Short-term change, let's see. So volcanic eruption, yep. That could be here. I think we're going to put our friends hurricanes and floods over here in the short-term change. Okay, but something that might happen, that might be both, is that this can cause the genes of an organism to change. So we're looking for things that could happen here. So this is going to be in your notebook, and that's page 11. If you look here on page 11, there's more drag and drop. These were just kind of going along with us, all right? And then the next thing and here's a key for you right here on slide 13. You can take a look at both of them, and I was correct, so that those so that our little friend here, oops, I'm gonna go back to our notebook, our slides, sorry, that the hurricane is a short term, but the volcano could be both. So kind of cool. Oh, that's true, because the volcano, immediate and then long term. Cool. So having a Friday moment already. So now we're going to go back to our slideshow. Okay. And we're going to play this thing. There's going to be an answer sheet you're given, and this is the fittest bunny. And on the fittest bunny, you're going to click scenarios. There's fur type, there's ears, etc. Click on this scenario, and you're going to be able to see how this happens and look at this change. And one of the interesting things is, here's your exit ticket. You can put that on a piece of paper with today's date and turn that into me when you get back. And then when you're finished, we want to make sure you finish those slides in your Unit 5 digital notebook and then submit it, because we're going to grade this halfway. You can also work ahead if you remember things in 7th and 8th grade. You're going to finish that graphing assignment if you hadn't. And then if you haven't, you can review Unit 5 vocabulary if you click here on the Ecology Quizlet. All right, so you guys have a great day, and we will see you on Friday.